please join me welcoming Attorney General Phil Weiser.
Thank you all for being here on this important occasion. Thank you, Larry Meisel. Our community is in your debt. Your leadership, commitment to celebrating Yiddishkeit, to addressing anti-Semitism and hate. I don't know where we'd be without you. And your partner, the amazing Melanie Perlman. This is an extraordinary event. And you do so much at the Meisel Institute and the Cell. Thank you, Melanie, for all you do. I'm joined here by my wife, Dr. Heidi Walls, and my son, Sammy. Heidi's family also is one that comes from Holocaust survivors. Heidi's dad was on the last boat leaving Germany before the St. Louis that was turned back. Both of us know what it means to come close to the horrors that we acknowledge today. The numbers are staggering. They're hard to behold. Babi Yar had 30,000 people killed. 200,000 Ukrainian Jews were killed, and we lost 6 million. The Holocaust is something many people don't want to remember because it's so awful to behold, which is exactly why we need to remember and never forget. We are at a time when the denial of the Holocaust is on the rise. People don't want to believe that this could have happened, but it did happen. And it is not an aberration in Jewish history, for we begin our leaving Egypt with Amalek, going after the weakest among us. We in Colorado do a great job remembering. And Sandra Wong's compositions and incredible spirit help us. I loved her words. Music can say things that are hard to say. We in Colorado have 3 statewide elected officials: our governor, Jared Polis, our Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, myself, who are Jews, the first time that's ever happened. And our 4th statewide elected official, Dave Young, who's also here. Where's Dave? I like to say is Jew-ish. And that's an important concept, and I'll get back to it, because part of how we remember and how we do our work is to join arms with others who are committed to the values that the Jewish people represent. My family's story is like many family stories in the Holocaust, although I'll get to it does have a twist. My grandparents grew up in a shtetl not far from Krakow. My wife and I went back to visit. And as my grandmother left Biech with her then young son, she found people who helped her, which we got to see that family. That young son was killed in front of my grandmother's eyes. My grandparents lost almost all their family members. They kept in touch. They were in similar camps. And before my grandfather left, they were in Buchenwald, he was going to Theresienstadt, they had time together. And in what is a miraculous celebration of the power of hope, they conceived a child. And my grandmother sent my grandfather a note that he got in Theresienstadt that said, "You have what to live for." And he knew what that meant. And after the war, when my mom was a day old, the US Army came to Buchenwald, and my grandmother delivered her by herself, had a piece of bread from a friend, and was able to cut the umbilical cord with a knife that she had. And the Swiss Red Cross took my mom and my grandmother to Switzerland, where a year later my grandfather met up, and they wanted to come to the United States of America. And they were helped by Hyas and other groups to come here. That hope is a story we hear again and again. There's a great story in the New York Times about a shofar that was kept throughout the Holocaust and blown in concentration camps because our spirit could not be suffocated. What we now see, anti-Semitism is not a thing of the past. It was about a year ago when someone went into the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh and said, "Kill all the Jews." That individual was motivated by hate and, in fact, was upset by Hyas, a group committed to settling immigrants that had previously helped settle my grandparents. That was followed by another shooting in a synagogue on Shabbat in California, in Poa. We are not living in an easy time. We can't be complacent, and we must be committed to the spirit of hope that has sustained our people. It was the day after that shooting in Pittsburgh that the Pittsburgh Gazette printed the Kaddish in Hebrew on its front page. It is also the case that in the wake of that horrific event, the Muslim community stepped up. And let me read to you what was said by the head of the Islamic Center in Pittsburgh. "Negative rhetoric against the Jewish community is poison. You know, it's poison for our democracy. It's poison for our country, and it's negative to everyone, not just that community." This spirit is what led our Jewish community in the wake of Christchurch to come together, and I was with many of you, to join not too far from here at a mosque on Friday, the day after, for services. And the next day for a community vigil that we stood together. And in that horrific aftermath in Pittsburgh, it was the Muslim community that raised money to rebuild the synagogue. I work in the Ralph Carr building, named for a governor of Colorado who fought against the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. And in that building is a quote from Martin Luther King that says, "An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." A quote that matches what has been shared with us today from Elie Wiesel. There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. For in the Bible it says, "Justice, justice shall you pursue." You must pursue justice, and you must do it justly. The ADL here in Colorado is committed to addressing hate speech of all kinds, whether based on gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, race. We are in this work together. As Melanie said at the outset, we can't be silent when hate rears its head. In Pirkei Avot, it tells us, you are not responsible yourself for repairing the world, for tikkun olam. But you're not free to desist from doing your part. All of us have a part to play. As we remember the horrors of the past, and as we remain vigilant in the face of rising hate and anti-Semitism today, I thank you for all of your work, and as your Attorney General, I am committed to standing by and working with you as we work towards a more perfect union and one that we fight for justice together. Thank you.
Wow.